And good evening. Welcome again to another Spaces. I hope all our participants are doing well personally as well as in the markets. And once again, we are back with a quick session on defense so as to talk about the pointers wherein as most of you are already aware, next week, Sunday, which is 14th September, we would be having a dedicated webinar on defense sector, and which I believe would be first of its kind, and not many people in the fraternity have talked about defense sector. So definitely we'll be touching upon the agenda points which would be covered in that session. And the link for those who are interested will be sharing shortly on this spaces. But before that, the two speakers which I would be introducing you guys today for the session. So I start with Kaustubh Roplekar. He, along with Manthan, had Alpha Wealth Avenues. So basically, they'll be discussing about the sector in great detail, and they'll be joined by Rahul Rao. So, as far as Kaustubh is concerned, he's founder at Alpha Wealth Avenues, and by profession, he's a CA and second generation stock market investor. And at a very early age, he had an opportunity of a good career at corporate level, wherein he was a CFO, and from last few years he has been a full-time investor as well as devoting much of his time to research. So welcome Kaustubh to this forum, and I appreciate if you add to your introduction and then we come to Rao.
Yeah, Prince, thanks for the kind words of intro. Nothing to add. Thanks. And thanks for calling me to this space, inviting me.
Great. And Rahul Rao is a CFA and being into markets full time from last a decade. Correct me, Rahul, in case 1 or 2 years here and there. And he is being a proponent of first principles. And those who join us regularly, they know that we have been doing this stuff for some time now. We did some great webinars in the past, and this would be our fourth webinar. And trust me, the response has been overwhelming from friends and fraternity, and definitely we try that we bring more value to the attendees. What minuscule we are charging for that, and without further ado, I hand it over to both of you so as to touch upon the discussion for today. And Rahul, maybe you can add more to your introduction if I missed anything, brother.
Yeah, thanks, Prince. Thanks for giving the opportunity. So, yeah, I've been full time since 21, and I've been investing since 2014-15. And I now write for the Indian Express on the side, and I'm an analyst. So, yeah, full time investor slash analyst. That's how it is. But I think in today's session, we are really excited to kind of have Kostabai with us. And so, Kaustubh, you want to kind of run us through, why is the defense sector interesting now? I think that's broadly the question we are trying to answer. And so, yeah, can we start with that?
Yeah, sure, Rahul. Yeah, so good evening, everybody. A bit about me is that I started investing in the market since 2001 too. My first trading account I opened in 2001. The advantage of that is I've seen many market cycles, and frankly, unless at least 3 to 4 market cycles on either side have been seen, it's very difficult to call yourself as experienced. वैसे expert तो कोई नहीं होता है, because the stock market is always 4 steps ahead of us. Coming to the case in point, defense. Okay. So in my investing career over more than 2 decades, I've always seen that whenever a new investing premise or a theme comes up, a lot of investors who are already veterans try to apply the earlier principles or earlier thoughts about how to analyze a sector. And then there are the new guys who really don't know what a sector, theme, and a cycle means. So they generally try to follow either the price action or what the more seasoned investors are talking about. My analysis based on my career is that typically a sector which is established, it goes through 4 to 5 stages repeatedly. Every sector, every stock is cyclical. The difference is that sectors typically have longer cycles and stocks can have, smaller cycles in terms of time period, except those which go on to become like a Bajaj Finance or a Titan or HDFC Bank. They have compounded over many decades. Now coming to defense, there is a perception that many defense companies are overvalued in terms of price, PE multiples. But let me share with you how I look at this sector. So a sector generally has 4 to 5 phases, depending upon what can be the breadth of the sector. The first phase is generally where an investing theme starts becoming apparent. The second phase is where the value starts getting discovered. The third is where the value unlocking and the expansion happens. The fourth is typically ending with a peaking out of that sector in terms of realizing full potential and beyond. You will find excess capacities and not enough demand, and then inevitably it will go into a down cycle. According to me, the phase one of the defense sector is over, and it was a long phase. So this is not the last few years, but I would say since India got its independence and maybe from the 70s, once we started having a kind of defense budget procurement policies, we had a long phase one where only the defense PSUs were involved. There was no real expansion opening of the sector. And that phase has somewhere ended where the first phase of privatization has happened in the last 2 to 3 years. So today we discuss about companies like, Apollo Microsystems, or even for that matter, Data Patterns, which is beyond your regular HL or a Mazgao and all that. Okay. We are firmly in phase two because value unlocking is surely happening. We have seen companies where the PE multiples have gone beyond 100. PE multiple 100 का मतलब ये होता है कि the investor is ready to pay 100 rupees for getting 1 rupee of return. So that is kind of the crazy valuation you have seen in some of the stocks or the prices. And then there was a sharp correction. So people felt that, पता नहीं defense sector का, tailwind hai, headwind hai, there was a confusion. I would say that it is phase two because the main part, where going from government, quasi-government to the privatization because of the innovation required is happening now. Okay. And somewhere this is going to be a transition from phase two to phase three, which is only going to a upward vertical curve. Okay. So we are nowhere near what we can call as sectoral experts, a sector which a lot of juice has come out and now there is likely to be a decline. In fact, in the next 3 years, we believe is the most democratic kind of opportunity to participate in this sector. And we are keenly watching out for what is happening on the innovation front, especially on the Navy and the Air Force side, including drones and all, because the warfare that is going to happen in the future is not likely to be artillery and on the ground. So with that, Rahul, my basic view to clear perception of people who are listening.
Right, right. Very nicely explained. And can we kind of continue a little bit further on uh, why not Army and why Navy and why the Air Force? Can you give us a few kind of go into a little bit more detail and also kind of expand on the flow of money towards these parts of our defense?
Yeah, so these are recent developments. I would say till a decade back, and then now we are not talking only about India. We are talking about how all the important global military powers are looking to fight with each other. And if you look at the statistics of the last 5 to 6 years, the number of countries engaged in warfare with each other has been one of the highest, maybe the highest at least in the last 40-50 years. Reason बहुत simple है कि either people are not happy with their neighbors or somebody else is coming from behind and telling them to not be happy with their neighbors. But either ways, ये जो advice है वो सर आंखों पे लिया जा रहा है. Also, the supplier of all these weapons want their business to continue, and hence, this is becoming like in every continent, every side, people are fighting with their neighbors, and then neighbor ka neighbor is coming in. Okay. Now, case in point is the Russia-Ukraine war. Okay, where everybody who reads newspapers would know that what happens, through drones is much easier than launching an entire army into a country. Also, putting an army across a border amounts to a certain kind of invasion, which incurs the wrath of other global powers, because that is certainly considered as something that a country should not do, invade the sovereignty of another country by internationally agreed borders. And then recently in Operation Sindoor also we saw that Pakistan was also sending drones by the night. We not only sent drones, but we sent a lot of other things which is known to people. So since it's a defense matter, I don't want to get into detail over here, but we know that again, it was not about army going into each other's territory at all. And that is likely to continue.
Right.
Rahul, to continue on this part, which is, beyond just army and navy, even if you look at the budget allocation. So India's budget allocation in 2020 was to defense was 4,72,000 crores, which is now in the year that we are in is some 6,40,000 crores. So it is growing very fast.
Right.
The reason is very simple, that any emerging power which wants to be a superpower, and we all know that where we stand in the ranking of the GDP of countries, we have progressed very fast in the last 5 to 6 years from X rank to now being at the top 5. Okay. And we are going to progress further to number 4 and 3. So जब भी ये होता है, it is very necessary that these are the challengers. Okay. So इन्हें अपना budget spend high रखना ही होता है. The way China has done in the last 2 decades, India is on the cusp of that, where if it does not have a strong defense budget and modernize, which it was not doing till a decade ago, then certainly a lot of our economic progress can also get stunted. To give an example, whatever, fuel, oils that we import, they come mainly via the Indian Ocean route. Okay.
Right.
Now, if we do not have some strategic hotspots and invest in those islands, in those particular ports, like China has been doing in the last 2 decades, कभी भी किसी ने वहां पे कुछ प्रॉब्लम कर दिया, तो India's oil supply can get interrupted without any apologies from the other side. Okay. So, इस तरह से, now what will you invest in a particular port or a particular island or a particular nation like Seychelles? It has to be on the Navy part or the Air Force part.
Right.
That's why on the modernization part, India has been allocating only 10% to Army and 90% to the Navy and the Air Force over the last 5 years, when the defense budget has been growing like anything. So that is the reason for this focus.
Right. Great. So continuing, one of the key things that led to a change in the defense sector for India was the policy, right? So DAP, I believe in 2020 was kind of the first step or one of the recent important steps that opened up the sector. Can you elaborate on that a little bit, why that was key? Because historically, as investors always believed that anything to do with government regulation is something that at least conventional value investing style is of that view, that हमें ये sector हाथ नहीं लगाना है. Yet, if you see some of the greatest or biggest wealth creators in the last couple of years have been precisely those sectors. Renewable energy, power, and defense, and all of those. So, can you talk about the policy aspect of it and elaborate on that a little bit, and what changed?
Sure. So now actually, Rahul, this is the most important part for our listeners to understand. As I referred to China, we all know that US has been investing in defense very strongly since World War II days. Okay. Finally, unless in a matter like a defense, the country's policy starts talking to actually what it wants to work. Okay.
Right.
There can never be any real modernization and progress. And the best part was what has happened post 2020. You know, maybe the Galwan strife was one thing. Maybe what happened in some of the other neighbors was a trigger. But yeah, this government has anyway been very strong in terms of policy implementation. And anyway, you cannot make everybody happy. But if you look at the DAP that you referred to, this has been the main change. So when I say main change, what is the DAP? It is basically defense acquisition procedure. So पुराने जमाने में फॉर एग्जांपल 15-20 years बैक क्या होता था कि अगर एक अच्छा बजट डिफेंस को भी दे दिया, यू नो, लेट्स टॉक लाइक अ कंपनी. ओके, सपोज एक कंपनी के प्रोक्योरमेंट डिपार्टमेंट को आपने एक 100 रुपीज का बजट दे दिया कि आपको ये बाय करना है पूरे साल में.
Right.
लेकिन अगर आपका प्रोसीजर, प्रोसेस और सिस्टम्स आर नॉट गियर्ड टू बाय दैट 200 crores और rather 100 rupees, then what happens is you will not be able to complete that procurement. Okay, so एक नॉर्मल आदमी समझता है कि यू नो एनी काइंड ऑफ प्रोक्योरमेंट और स्पेंड इज वेरी इजी, जैसे हम जाके कुछ बाय करते हैं. बट वेयर देयर आर प्रोसीजर्स एंड स्पेशली फॉर अ इम्पोर्ट डिपेंडेंट कंट्री फॉर डिफेंस इक्विपमेंट लाइक इंडिया, there had to be a very long bureaucratic process which was creating a problem where most of the times the revised estimates by the mid of the year were much lower than the actual budget spent. अपने को खर्चा ही नहीं होता था. The second part was because you are importing from others, you are at the mercy of them in two things. One is the technology aspect, which of course is completely their right. They are developing it, designing it. Second is even after you buy, आपको वो चीज कैसे यूज करनी है, उसका ऑप्टिमम यूज क्या है, उसके लिए भी उनकी ट्रेनिंग और उनके इंटरफेरेंस पे डिपेंड होना है मेंटेनेंस के.
Right.
So what DAP did is, it was very drastic. It is very drastic. It has been progressively releasing positive indigenization lists. इसका मतलब क्या है कि अगस्त 2020 में जब पहला इम्प्लीमेंटेशन हुआ, डायरेक्टली 101 प्राइमरी आइटम्स केम ऑन द लिस्ट कि जो इट वाज मैंडेटेड कि अपने को इंडिया में ही प्रोड्यूस करना है. यू कैन टेक अ फॉरेन जेवी बट इंडिया में ही करना है. एंड यू नो chronologically May 21, April 22, now that cumulative list of primary items is 515.
Right.
So when I talk about primary items, it not only includes components and critical parts, but it also involves avionics, naval systems, land systems, drones, major platforms for helicopters, then the tanks, then the missiles, smart bombs, everything. So this has really set the cat amongst the pigeons. You know, now there is no way. मतलब ये लिस्ट का महत्व ये है कि not only you are promoting that वो इंडिया में आपको प्रोड्यूस करना है, but you are also in a way putting a block on importing them after a certain date. मतलब when push comes to shove, लोगों को करना ही पड़ेगा. And the best part is they have gone very logically. जैसे phase 1 जो था 2021 में, the first and second list involved only components, subsystems, like कुछ radar के parts, कुछ sonar systems of naval के part, then कुछ communication gear, कुछ engine और vehicle के parts, कुछ artillery shells, simpler platforms like offshore patrol vessels, etc.
Right.
Then, so that the first level of primary ecosystem gets created of components. In phase 2, they started putting an embargo on complex system to be directly imported from abroad. So this came somewhere in 22. So यहाँ पे directly components for aircraft like, you know, Su-30 MKI, Jaguar, then naval systems directly anti-submarine warfare systems, satellite communication systems. ये सब भी embargo चालू हो गया. Okay. And phase 3, where the fourth and fifth list came in 2023, directly you have light combat helicopters, naval utility helicopters, larger, more capable naval vessels, long range land attack cruise missiles. ये सब भी अभी वो एम्बार्गो में आ गया और कंपल्सरी इंडिजनाइजेशन में आ गया. सो फेज 1 and 2 have been a massive growth driver for a public and private partnership. क्यों? क्योंकि it was not possible for the public organizations, जैसे public sector undertakings, basically an HL.
Right.
So I would request everybody if they can just जो भी करना चाहता है थोड़ा रिसर्च, HL के लास्ट 2-3 years के अगर आप कॉन्कॉल्स पढ़ोगे या इन्वेस्टर प्रेजेंटेशन देखे तो आपको समझ में आएगा कि पूरा आउटसोर्सिंग का बात हो रहा है. ओके, बिकॉज that is the kind of necessity if we have to go ahead, and that is why the phase 2 of this sector, where privatization is clearly taking a very strong role, has started, and we are at the cusp of a very big boom.
Right. So, by the way, if somebody is not so sure of how components and all of these things fit in together, we'll be discussing this in more detail and simplifying it in the session itself. So don't
So
worry if things are a little bit.
I mean, yeah, sorry. So Rahul and Kaustubh, can we assume that we would also be discussing about the ancillary to the sector? Because ancillary investing is something which makes good returns for the investors, as we take numerous examples wherein there are times when directly investing into that sector may be a deterrent due to some valuation, but at times we find ancillary is well placed. Would we be, can our audience expect something on those lines as well?
Yeah. So what we have seen so far is scratching the surface, where companies, the main DPSUs have went rocking on their valuations, prices like a Mazgaon, Cochin, GRSC, HL, then also certain bigger private listed players like you can take certain names, like there can be data patterns, Bharat Forge, etc. But where we are now, okay, even these companies have certain capacities. So private का मतलब ये भी नहीं है ना कि अगर कोई एक 15,000 करोड़ मार्केट कैप की कंपनी है जिसका 2,000 करोड़ टॉप लाइन है, ओके, तो अगले 2 साल में वो 2,000 से डायरेक्टली 4,000 करोड़ का मैन्युफैक्चर कर सकता है. पॉसिबल नहीं है. क्यों? बिकॉज all the designs for the products and equipments have to be co-engineered, co-developed with DRDO and other government organizations. So government also realized that they cannot work with only say 20 or 30 suppliers. They need at least 200 plus suppliers in even this phase, and that will only increase. That is why, alluding to what Prince is saying, we have players like Centum Electronics, okay, then we will have Premium Explosives, and many more, which so far have started getting orders, and they are in the first phase of starting to produce those products, and they will see very explosive growth. So, yeah, I mean, we will be getting into many companies which are at the cusp of getting orders. The design is finalized. They have started the first commercial production, और यहाँ से आगे उस कंपनी का एक एक्सप्लोसिव ग्रोथ देखने को मिलेगा. That is the whole point of establishing the fact that we are in stage 2, where the best is yet to come for this sector.
Right.
So the smaller companies which are going to blast are going to be the case studies.
Right. So just to also add to that and answer Prince's question, I think the fundamental utility of why these sessions and the upcoming session is important is because it gives you a structure. Now, once you have a structure for that sector, in this case it is defense, we have done others also like housing finance, like contrarian investing, like all of that. The point is, once you have a structure, once you have a map, it is much more easier to contextualize things and be smart about where things fit in. So, Prince, so proxy play, I mean, the word proxy is also used. You said ancillary, I'm using proxy, is the same thing, right? So, those things, as Kaustubh mentioned, that we are going to discuss within the session itself, but also having an overall structure, a map, will also allow the person attending to also, kind of add their own research and see where it fits in. So I think it accomplishes both those things on that question.
Perfect. And perfect. And I believe what I have experienced over the past, Rahul, in our sessions is like good set of questions invite two-way communication in which certain points, of course, whenever we do session, we do not claim that we know 100 things about the sector, but definitely we pour in a lot of effort going through various reports, doing company research and whatnot.
Right.
But again, a good set of questions from the audience is a great validation all the times.
Absolutely.
So, one small announcement for our audience. Those who are interested can certainly see the pinned tweet to this spaces, and if they wish to register, definitely they can register for next 3.5 hours, 4 hours. Till 12 p.m., 12 a.m. today. We are keeping the price as 799, and post that it will be increased to $1,000. So in case anyone is interested, definitely they can avail this opportunity for next 3-4 hours. Yeah, Rahul.
Yeah.
Over to you.
So I just wanted to continue on the line where Kaustubh, you mentioned that there are several lists that came out, one in 2020, 2022, 2023, and different components or subcomponents were meant to be indigenized. Uh, can you help us understand why during these initial the initial phase, why defense PSUs were the biggest beneficiaries, and why we are, if you think, why private sector companies are kind of, meant to be beneficiaries going forward? Can you put that in context for us, please?
Yeah, good question. Again, the way you mentioned about our subscribers will come to know
Mm-hmm.
what is the structure of the sector. This question obviously, so we'll scratch the surface over here
Mm-hmm.
because the detailed part
Absolutely.
we'll
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
cover on
Yeah.
the 14th of September.
Right.
Yeah, so what you have asked is basically natural because it's a defense sector.
Mm.
Okay, so where does the defense sector fit? It directly fits with the government.
Right.
Okay, if you look at the way the British operated their defense system where they were in India before 1947,
Mm-hmm.
our defense was an offshoot of that. Okay, so basically, but the good part is our government decided, being a democracy, that the defense will be under the civilian services, that is a minister who will be civilian. Unlike our neighbor, जहाँ पे defense has got overriding powers even over the parliament and the civilian establishment. So that is a good thing that has happened.
Yeah.
Now, why PSUs is because since that time, for each type of, you can say, requirement, कि जैसे एयरफोर्स है तो HAL बन गया, आपको शिप्स बनाने हैं या मेंटेन करने हैं तो कुछ शिप बिल्डिंग कंपनीज बन गए, आर्मी के लिए कुछ बन गया, and that has been on for more than 50 years. Okay. By the way, this DAP's first birth came sometime in 2001, 2002. Incidentally, when India started their boom, you can say. The stock market also had a boom since 2003.
Yeah.
But
Incidentally, when
PSUs
you
too.
also started your investment journey, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
yeah.
I was lucky to start
Yeah.
my journey in 2001 too. Actually,
Right.
that was a very depressed phase. Okay, that was the time when for 8-9 years the Indian stock market had not given any returns at a index level. Okay, और वो पहला लेसन वही मिला कि जो भी नीचे जाता है वो ऊपर आना ही है, और जो ज्यादा ऊपर जाता है वो नीचे आना है, in a layman's language. Okay, and then later on as a CA I studied the concept of valuation and first principles that you like to refer to. Okay,
Right. Right.
so this sector, तो गवर्नमेंट को जो प्रोक्योरमेंट के ऑर्डर्स थे वो किसको देंगे? ऑब्वियसली PSUs को ही देंगे. A very similar setup is there in railways also. Another sector which I think most of the big fund managers have tried to shy away from along with
Okay.
defense because of the main participation of PSUs.
Right.
बट जिन्होंने गवर्नमेंट के डॉक्यूमेंट्स 21, 22 में पढ़े थे कि उनका 10 या 20 ईयर प्लान क्या था, क्लियर था that it has to be the private sector which will ride. जैसे आप अभी देखोगे कि डिफेंस का इतना बड़ा बजट है, बट आज भी less than 5% is put into R&D as far as the government departments are concerned. Because they feel that the private sector can do it better. Okay, there has to be a certain baggage to a PSU. So in the initial times, where I referred to as the phase one of this sector, you had perceived inefficiencies, low growth expectations, rock bottom valuations. बट क्या हुआ कि जैसे ये पीएसयूज को बहुत बड़े बड़े ऑर्डर्स मिलने लगे आफ्टर 2020, सडनली देयर वैल्यूएशंस बूम. बट उसमें प्रॉब्लम क्या था? The main part was not there, which all of you would have been listening for the last 2 to 3 years. तो सडनली ये जो अपने को आत्मनिर्भर बनना है, ओके, कि इंपोर्ट सब्सटीट्यूशन, इंडियनाइजेशन एंड इनफैक्ट वी शुड बिकम वन ऑफ द मेन एक्सपोर्टर्स ऑफ डिफेंस प्रोडक्ट्स एंड इक्विपमेंट. दैट हैज बीन अ गेम चेंजर. सो जैसे ही आप एक्सपोर्ट की बात करोगे, ओके, इफ अ पर्टिकुलर कंट्री हैज टू बाय फ्रॉम यू, they also have a certain view about PSUs, okay, and the turnaround time, the quality, etc. So in a way, private participation become absolutely mandatory, and that is where the policy to practice has helped, and the massive order flow that was coming because of the huge budget of the government to spend, that had to go beyond the public sector undertakings for lack of ability to innovate in such a short time, for not being able to meet the requirements irrespective of their huge size. And now with the export push and the long-term modernization cycle, which is a given, जैसे फेज 1 क्यों खत्म हुआ है? बिकॉज हमने 3 साल तक देखा है कि गवर्नमेंट हैज नॉट ओनली वॉक द टॉक, इट हैड एक्सीडेड द एक्सपेक्टेशंस इन बीइंग कंप्लीटली impartial to the private sector. They have been very happy to take them on board. And आप किसी भी प्राइवेट सेक्टर कंपनी लाइक अ कृष्णा डिफेंस और एबीएस मरीन और एवेंटेल, इनका सब देखोगे तो इट इज वेरी क्लियर दैट द गवर्नमेंट इज वेरी क्लियरली एंगेजिंग विद देम विद एटलीस्ट अ 10 year प्लान, 5 year प्लान. मतलब ऐसा नहीं कि आपको बताएगा चलो आप ये 2 प्रोडक्ट ले लो, आपको ये बनाने हैं, बाकी का बाद में देखेंगे, ऐसा नहीं है. ओके, सो लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स आर नॉट एक्सप्लेन्ड इन डिटेल ड्यू टू द कॉन्फिडेंशियलिटी, but at the same time, the overall flow is very clear that this, according to me, will be beyond a decadal story.
Right. Very nicely explained, Kaustubh. Thank you. Uh, so, with that, Prince, I think, do we have more time, or what's
I
the?
think we are on time. We decided that we share the main pointers, although there would be a lot more which would be discussed. But again, so as to because I have been getting some DMs and messages over WhatsApp also that what all we would be covering. So uh, as a practice, like we try to give a gist of whatever we are planning to share in this session, so that helps the people so as to make their mind whether they want to attend or not. Again, I would reinforce that we try to bring the maximum value we can, and believing that if we are on the receptive side, what we expect. So on those lines, we do hard work and plan these sessions, take enough time so that we are not in a hurry to do sessions, but rather bring value on the table. So once again, I'm reiterating that this link is available for next 3-4 hours, and those who are willing can certainly register. And subsequently, they'll be getting invites on their emails near to the session, which is again on 14th September, 11 a.m. And the session would also be recorded, so those who are not able to listen live can refer to the recording. And also, if you are not able to attend right now, later you can have an access to the recording. But it is always great to participate live and ask good questions. So that is the basic intention we have in all our sessions. And Manthan couldn't join us for some reason. He also has his insights. He also has a rich research background. So definitely this is going to be one of a session, and we are always open for feedbacks and good set of questions. So those who are registering, they can certainly tag us over X or maybe DM or send us an email for their questions. We'll try to see if we can address all the questions. Again, the session is not done with an intention of giving you buy sell calls or any tips, but a more holistic discussion wherein we would be deep diving the sector that where we believe it is placed at this point in time. So what decision point we can come at if we are already invested or if we are thinking of a fresh investment. So these are certain pointers which I believe will help you take a more informed decision. But again, as we always say, be it the spaces or these dedicated webinars, please take that as a starting point, because we are not here to emphasize or propagate any hard views on any companies. The idea is to become more informed and better investors, and you never know what we can get out of these sessions, what information which was not available to us. So this is the intention. Yeah. Anything, Rahul and Kaustubh, you want to add?
No, I'm good. Kaustubh bhai, any closing notes from your end?
Yeah, sure. So, to all those listening, I would like to say that एक सेक्टर को कैसे अप्रोच करना है, ये सबसे पहले आपको फायदा हो सकता है whenever you attend our webinars. Okay, we plan to do many, but especially in case of defense, where the perception has been very different than what has likely to happen in the next few years. Okay, where actually a lot of participation by DIs and all will happen, which may not have happened as much because of the legacy of PSUs. So it's always that in a strong sector, okay, मतलब मैं 20 साल से लोगों को यही बोलता हूँ कि in a very strong tailwind sector, okay, even the 10th stock will do better than the second stock in a sector which is facing headwinds. So sectoral approach से आप जाओगे rather than purely, looking at stocks and their businesses. It will always help you to create wealth. Okay. Otherwise, a stock to stock, you will always make money, but you will be always searching for the next stock. So in that way, to understand a sector, approach कैसे करना है, उसके लिए this webinar will help. And more importantly, it will educate you कि आगे क्या होने वाला है and which are the main opportunities and how to identify them. So we generally make it pretty deep, okay, and ensure that we communicate in a language which will be very clearly understood by an investor who is keen to know and then invest his hard-earned money.
Great. So I think with that, we'll close today's session. And as Prince has already alluded to, that if you are keen, there is a link. So that's it from our end. Prince?
Thanks, Rahul and Kaustubh. I was trying to add Giri Tharan, but unable to add. Maybe he also has a good experience in this sector. But again, we connect offline or maybe in another session. So with that note, I take everybody's leave. Thank you for joining, and hope we continue to add value. Keep on coming to our spaces, and certainly you can follow Rahul and Kaustubh so that more insights around the market you can get on their handles. And definitely warm up before the workshop on Sunday. So this will be another kind of introductory session where we would be discussing about the defense sector, and those who have registered will definitely find worth their time on the workshop on Sunday, and those who are keen can surely register today as well. So let me add Rahul and Manthan as well, and we start. I'm not sure they are able to get the request or not. So Rahul and Manthan, if you're listening, the speaker request has already been sent, so you simply need to accept it, and then we can set it going. So Kaustubh, in the want of time, we can start. Maybe you can take the lead. Meanwhile, I'm checking with Manthan and Rahul, and certainly we can start discussing, right?
Of course, let's begin. So welcome to everybody. A nice Friday evening. And speaking about a sector which has excited us in the past few years, and which has also been something as a lot of discussion, because on the price action part, this sector has been behaving like a maverick. I think it started somewhere in June 2024, where a rapidly rising price structure suddenly dived down. Then there were some more volatility. Then again from March 2025, we have seen a strong price action for some time. And now as we speak, we are on the cusp of having analyzed this sector very well and going to present it to you in the Sunday webinar, which is on 14th of September. So I think I can see now Rahul also is a speaker. So yeah, Rahul, you can begin.
Yeah, hi. So maybe we can start off with a quick introduction, nothing too long, maybe like 20, 30 seconds, and then we'll get into the crux of our discussion today. Is that okay?
Sure.
Or we're already done? I'm sorry I joined a little late.
No. Intro is pending. So, of course, my name is Kaustubh. I am the founder of Alpha Wealth Avenues. It is a research-focused and advisory firm, and we've been doing sectoral webinars with very good response. And we've also taken up defense based on the fact that we had conducted a poll through Prince Handle where there's a lot of demand for it, and we are seeing that in the registrations. I'm a chartered accountant and been in the markets for more than 2 decades. So I've seen 4 to 5 cycles of, you can say, bull and bear runs on either side, survived, and then certainly can speak a few things about how to navigate the markets. So that's about me.
Great. Can we now have Manthan also? I think he's on the call with us.
He'll be joining shortly. Rahul, maybe he can add later. You can take the lead and we can
Sure,
chat it.
sure. So I'll quickly, in a few seconds, introduce myself. My name is Rahul. I've been investing since 2014. I now work with a family office, and that's pretty much it. I write for the Indian Express on the side on listed companies, and I run a small club sort of thing called Gurugram Investors Club. So if you're in Gurgaon and you're a serious investor, you're welcome to attend. But today, I think we want to focus on the defense sector, and we've got Manthan and Kaustubh with us. We're going to kind of help us understand where we are in the cycle, why this is an important and interesting opportunity, and so yeah, let's dive into it. So, Kaustubh, do you want to give us a sort of
So
um,
Rahul, sorry to come in
mhm.
between. We are also
Yeah,
joined by Manthan. So Manthan, are you able to speak?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Hi guys.
quickly, Manthan. Yeah, Manthan, please introduce yourself quickly, and then over to you three guys.
Yeah. Hello everyone. I am Manthan Rastogi, co-founder of Alpha Wealth Avenues. So I have worked in I have basically worked in product management and management consulting for a couple of years, and post that from last year we have founded Alpha Wealth Avenues, which is a research focused firm. That's the brief about us. Now we can discuss about the defense sector.
Right, perfect. Uh, okay, so Kaustubh, you want to kind of start and give us a lay of the land, and you know, can we begin?
Sure. Thanks for giving me the opportunity first. Yeah, so for the benefit of everybody listening to us, okay, so India's defense sector is something which is undergoing a transformation. The transformation has very recently started, and when I say recently, we can say post 2022. The reason is that the prior period from independence till 2020 was obviously, riddled with a lot of bureaucracy, reactive thinking, then procurement, which was mostly import driven because we did not have the technical know-how, and also we did not even know what gets fitted into what, even if we were to import and assemble. So that era seems to be clearly behind us now, based on what has started since 2020, where policy has become, walk the talk, where the government has started to not only indigenize many important components and systems, but also started putting an embargo on being able to import those. So it's like a double whammy, which is for the benefit of our country and the manufacturers here. So as a result, what has happened is, with so much of a outlay of the government towards the capex purchases in the defense sector, what has happened is the PSUs, which were the only main companies which were managing the government orders in a certain way, they had to, give these orders in turn to the private sector companies who were ready to do innovation. So some of the first movers in this space have been Data Patterns, Astra, then even some recent companies like Apollo Microsystems. The reason being, when the government looks at expanding its value chain, okay, other than the top few defense PSUs like Mazgaon, then you had Bharat Dynamics, Bharat Electronics, Hindustan Aeronautics. It is not possible for government to go beyond that structure. Okay. So various kinds of private sector companies have come in now in the last 3 years, and this is just like scratching the surface. Okay. Why? Because many projects which even we feel are successful now, like the Tejas aircraft, etc., that have actually happened with a long delay from the PSUs over decades. Okay. I guess the timeline given would have been 5 years, but they have happened over 20-25 years. And this government is very strong at policy implementation. So they surely do not want to repeat what has happened over this period of time. Hence, the private sector has been roped in. As we all know, even as we speak, as on 12th September 2025, there are a handful of private companies which are completely oriented to defense. And we have heard various names which also have taken up defense because they have been part of co-creation of certain products. Okay. So to conclude this part of my opening dialogue, I would say that in a investing cycle of a sector, this sector has got discovered as a good investable premise. More and more budgets are getting allocated to Indian manufacturers, which in turn will go to private manufacturers. Even as we speak, in spite of the policy reorientation over the last 5 years, the private sector still manufactures about 21% of the defense manufacturing, which means that another 50 odd percent is with the same defense PSUs, which have run over the last 100 years, and another 15-16% is to ordnance factories. So in the next 3 to 5 years, these percentages are likely to invert, which means the private sector will go above 50%. And the kind of order inflows that we see would be around 50,000 crore per year, okay, progressively. So with all these numbers, we are very excited. We have done a deep dive and not only found opportunities at a company level, but more importantly at a product level, at a indigenization list level, that what is going to happen in the next couple of years and which companies are likely to benefit. So I'll take a pause here and back to Rahul for the next leg of discussion.
Yeah. Yeah, I think before we get to Manthan and get his views on the topic, I think one very interesting way to encapsulate what the opportunity is I was listening to an interview by the IAF chief. I think it was a 3-month-old video, and he was quoting Winston Churchill, and he said that for each one of us, there comes in their lifetime a special moment when they are figuratively tapped on the shoulder and offered the chance to do something very special. What a tragedy if that moment finds them unprepared for which could have been their finest hour. So he said that in a speech, and he was alluding to India's private defense sector, and essentially saying that history has given you a chance to do something special, and we hope that the industry lives up to it. So that's the kind of inflection moment and point we are, and yeah, so that's where we are, and I think with that, I'd like to invite Manthan Bhai and also to get his views on the topic.
Yes, thanks, Rahul. Certainly, like we have gone through the first leg of the defense rally that we have seen in last 3 years, right? And the major change and the pivotal change that happened in Indian defense ecosystem has been the DAP policy of 2020, which we will cover in detail in our Sunday deep dive. It post that we have seen there are a lot of opportunities opening up, but we still feel as per our deep dive, this was just the leg one. Post that we will see more private sector participation in various fields, especially in Air Force and Navy. And then there would be certain key companies which are pretty small as of today. Like there are certain opportunities in SMEs also, which will be covered in our deep dive on 14th, which might be the biggest beneficiary of the emerging trend. And I would like to mention that this is not only a decadal play, it could be a multi-decadal play, but there will be its own up and down cycle in the defense, and we have already gone through a lag period of last 1.5 year in most of the defense companies. And it was not very difficult to predict that this down move will happen because the valuation was absurd at certain point of time, but which have cooled down. There has been no big orders in Navy, especially if I talk about in last 14-15 months. But the next 12 months or maybe 15 months looks very promising, as India needs to build certain submarines. There would be certain frigates order that will be coming, and all of these will be like few companies will be direct beneficiary of these mega inflows that will be there, and this will be cascaded to the smaller companies, which will be discussed in detail. So my 2 points is there, like the defense sector could be a multi-decadal theme. There will be its own boom and bust cycles between the mega trend, and we need to capture the right trend at the right point of time.
Perfect. So I think we also want to temper, kind of provide a balanced view because, as you rightly pointed out, that while it is a mega trend, there are going to be booms and busts and their own cycles. One of the some of us are coming from a value investing background, including myself. And one of the hangups we have is the trailing multiples when you look at them. And, we look at them and say, "Ki everything has been discovered and there's no opportunity and all that, right?" So, how do you kind of make sense of that? And if that is the case, what points, in the cycle can provide, somebody who's well informed, hopefully through our webinar on Sunday. Uh, how do they kind of go about actually, taking a position? Any frameworks, any thought process around that?
Yeah. So, like again, we think like every investor is kind of a value investing, not the appropriate definition of value investing that we talk about. But value without growth is redundant. There is hardly any cases where we will find a proper Benjamin Graham kind of value investing. So there should be a value and there should be a growth. And in defense sector, we think the value might not be there on the TTM basis, but the looking at the order books and the projections that the Indian government has for Indianization plan, plus the export opportunity that may emerge few years later, the sector is placed well, right? But again, whenever it's kind of like it's a nascent stage. Defense sector is at a nascent stage, so finding the right winners or the right companies would be very difficult if someone is not doing their homework correctly. Right? Because a lot of companies we have seen, there are a lot of announcements that they are moving into defense sector, but in reality they are only manufacturing ammunition. And as we know, right, ammunition is not the main or the high margin business in the defense value chain. It's much more than that. So we need to pick our bets correctly and have our trailing positions if someone is not comfortable with the starting valuations. And then maybe slowly as execution ramps up, one can like increase their allocation to certain companies.
Right.
But again, it will be very bottoms up. One idea that we can give is you can select the pockets where a lot of orders are coming, which is mainly Air Force and Navy. And even in that, one can focus on certain parts where a lot of Indianization is happening.
Right. Kaustubh, your view on the question?
Yeah. So I think since a few years have passed of this positive indexation list, which happened in the DAP procedure, as Manthan mentioned, okay, where the Ministry of Defense, the right Raksha Mantri, gives an embargo on certain products which can no more be imported. So they've done it in a very logical way. Phase one was where you had the basic components, phase two where you had slightly more complex systems, and phase three where you have the entire system equipment. Now, why I'm saying this is because these are the 515 products, and then another 2,500 components of that, okay, which have got into the Indian manufacturing. And if we look at the trends of the last 2 to 3 years, so if you look at companies like a Data Patterns, etc., what have they been producing? What have been their margins? Why those margins? So basically value investing में, okay, आपको growth चाहिए, but that growth at the top line should also lead to a margin expansion. Otherwise, it is meaningless. Okay, because if there are no operational efficiencies, you are not able to do a certain level of margin improvement. Then it will. So the analysis that we have done have given us some pointers about which are the high margin products and systems and which are the likely low margin systems. And this is what is going to play out over the next 2-3 years. For the simple reason is, after every couple of months, the ministry is, taking out particular contracts, orders, which are also available on the website, which state that कि अगले 6 महीने में, अगले 1 साल में, which of the products contracts are going to be done. The corollary to that is, अभी भी most of the things which we feel are being indigenized, okay, are actually कुछ import होता है, कुछ assemble होता है, और कुछ होता है. So which means that as the level of indigenization goes up and import substitution happens, the margins of some of the products are likely to further go. So ये सब study हमने किया है, which gives us a good hold on those products, the companies which are making those products, the companies which are getting orders for those products, and then that's how the, you can say the ecosystem of value that will unfold in this sector is becoming evident. Again, there will always be a word of caution. To give an example, there's a company called IdeaForge. Okay, was doing very well. It was a good margin company, focused on drones and UAVs. But अभी last year क्या हुआ कि अपने general elections, assembly elections की वजह से many of the government contracts were into a kind of silo or a silence for some time. So directly उसका जो top line था वो FY24 से FY25 में आधा हो गया. Okay, and since all these companies are also in a phase of doing a lot of R&D for the next set of orders, because products develop हो रहे हैं, फिर एक trial production हो रहा है, और फिर commercial production हो रहा है. Okay, which is anybody can say which can go across a few quarters. So they couldn't stop their R&D as well for the next set of orders. And now if you look at the last 4 months, they are getting very good orders. So cyclicality अलग-अलग type से आते रहेगा. And that's why doing a proper structural analysis of the sector and getting into a company level will help. Directly trying to, getting into just a company level margin or a company level, understanding may not help. And that is exactly the structural way in which we discuss and we explain the sector to all the participants. So I hope that gives some clarity on what we feel is going to happen and what we are going to explain.
Right. Yeah, it does. Uh, Manthan, do you want to kind of give us a sense of what's happening, particularly on the Navy front? Just like a brief, maybe couple of minutes.
Yeah, right. So let me introduce the products that is basically used in Navy. So whenever we say Navy, it's basically Nausena. Whenever you call Nausena, it's a army which is deployed over waters. And as we know, India is a very huge coastline, and India needs to defend its naval borders also. So types of products are basically aircraft carriers, and we already know, right? One of the aircraft carrier that we recently built is INS Vikrant, and then there are certain other carriers like destroyer, frigate, corvettes, and submarines. So recently, like two frigates has been emerged or introduced into the Indian Navy recently in January. But other than that, also government has been focusing very much on including new submarines. It's a P-75I project that, if anyone follows on defense, Indian government want to induct 6 new submarines, and that unlocks the opportunity of 70,000 crore. Right? And this has been done with a technology transfer with a French company. So all of these kind of huge orders are coming, Again, there are 10-15 frigates order which is pending, right, which comes up around 1 lakh crore. So around like 2 lakh crore orders of Navy should come in next 2 to 3 years, and there will be certain companies which will benefit. Just for the reference, the Masgao Dock, which is the listed company, it's one of the shipyard, has only the revenue of 10,000 crore in FY25. So looking at the order book and the potential order book that should come in next couple of years, the opportunity size looks very huge. And other than that, there are very small SME companies which are catering to the shipbuilders. So there could be the cascading opportunities in those parts also. But the word of caution here would be these are long dated projects. So one cannot emphasize or one cannot get excited just by the order books, because these are the 5 or 10 years order and the delay is pretty common. So we will cover the interesting case study in our webinar related to one of the submarine that was being discussed in 1990s and got built into 2020. So
Right. Yeah, I was just going to say the order book play, because HAL, in the case of HAL, I think their order book is close to, I think, 60,000 crores. Uh, so yeah, multiple times of what their revenue is. But the caution is always that, how quickly they can ramp up. In their case, for example, the Tejas aircraft, they're not receiving engines only. तो मतलब सब कुछ होने के बाद भी वहाँ पे, there's a slight delay in execution. So yeah, I mean, that word of caution, I mean, yeah, we have to be kind of cognizant of that.
yeah, one more interesting theme would be that will be there in the shipbuilding space would be the ship repair theme. Again, as we have discussed, the warship or the war machines that I have already mentioned, about 4 or 5 types of warship, that the building phase, which is a long dated order book cycle, like it takes around 5 to 10 years. But there is one every year or a contractual thing which is in ship repairing. Just for the fact, India holds less than 1% in the shipbuilding space, and China is the dominant player, followed by Korea and then Japan. So Indian government is trying to focus to build shipbuilding capacities, which also include ship repair opportunities. So recently, few companies like L&T Shipbuilding or Mazdog has signed up a contract with US Navy for their Navy ship repairs, right? And this can also drop down to commercial vehicles also. The shipbuilding in itself could be lakh crores of industry till 2030. And even taking the 5 or 10% market share in the global domain, this could lead to around 10-15,000 crore of annual opportunity for Indian shipbuilders.
Right. Perfect. Uh, so Kaustubh, do you want to give a sense of what's happening on the army front?
Yeah, I mean, on the army front, of course, we have, again, analyzed various types of systems, because what happens is army now is not limited to, guns. You also have missiles, air defense, radars, anti-drone technology, and lots of other interesting things. And for these also, generally the ticket size, for example, an army tank, where one of the legacy tanks is called Bhishma and the new one is called Arjun. Okay, so the Arjun is made at 70 crores, and generally these get manufactured in thousands. Okay, so again the size of opportunity is very huge, and so far we have had some of the PSUs and some of the larger private companies participate in that, typically like Bharat Forge, etc. But now again, the kind of order flow that is coming, okay, it is not possible that only a certain set of companies will be able to, first of all develop, then get all the approvals and do it overnight. So again, over here, we are seeing a spillover to the smaller players, which we'll be covering in the webinar. And, when it comes to radar, anti-drone technology, also talking about secure communication systems for the Army as well as Navy and Air Force, where our first Sambhav, which is the indigenous passive surveillance suits, has come to light now. So all these very interesting developments are happening, and this is where actually the rubber hits the road, which means that now things are actually happening and taking place. Again, Army remains the base as a support for Navy as well as the Air Force. So in a way, that will always have its importance amongst the three verticals. And we have done a deep dive again over there for the higher margin products, lower margin products, and where the orders are going and where they are likely to be. So the size of opportunity again remains massive. And while speaking about this in particular, I would generalize one thing, that investors should not use the lens of a regular cyclical sector to this, because this sector is still under discovery. So अगर किसी सेक्टर के 4 या 5 phases या stages रहते हैं, okay, where one is discovery, 2 is advanced discovery and some value unlocking, third is a lot of value coming in, fourth is the euphoria stage and the value peaking. So we are somewhere around the 2 as of now. So this can really go well if the next 3 years are as good as the last 3 years in terms of public private partnership. So that's something that we need to watch for, and we always be careful about how things are developing, because a lot of dependence is there originally on the government for the orders flow and the execution approvals.
Got it. So when you mentioned tanks, something came to my mind, and uh, I thought I'll just ask the question to you, because there's this idea of asymmetric warfare now, right? Where Operation Spiderweb, in the case of Ukraine, I believe, was a perfect example of how maybe a few $1 million worth of drones destroyed key, aircrafts and equipment worth billions of dollars. Now, when you have that kind of, uh, maybe, you can call it in layman a new type of warfare, do you think tanks particularly are still as relevant? And is there any, data that the Indian Army is still continuing to kind of source them in massive numbers?
Yeah, so while the drone related technology, drone related attacks and anti-drone surveillance systems are gaining precedence, it is very recent. Okay. But if you talk about formal artillery, and also let's come to the tanks. Okay. So tanks also have a decent range. Of course, it is in kilometers. And there is always a time, like if you look at, I just wanted to highlight this point, that if you look at the Russia-Ukraine war, okay, so obviously the media is highlighting the fact that lots of drones, missiles have been used.
Right.
In fact, Mr. Putin also had threatened about a nuclear bomb. But everybody knows that Russia has actually invaded Ukraine. They have also occupied some part of Ukraine. So that has not happened through a drone technology.
Right.
Okay. That has happened with tanks. That has happened with howitzers, grenade launchers. It has happened through, all those cavalry vehicles that we see. Okay. Then we have these Smerch MLRs, which are, even India uses a Russian origin for heavy bombardment of the enemy. So, new things will always come up, but the old things never will go, especially in neighborhood disputes. When you say 2 neighbors or 3 neighbors are fighting,
Right.
and if you 80% or 90% of the world's wars are always between neighbors, तो 11 खत्म होते हुए कोई chance नहीं है.
Right. Right. Perfect. So I think that broadly kind of sums it up. And anything else we want to add, Prince?
I think we are good, Rahul, and we are in an era of when the global world order is changing, and that is bringing so many uncertainties, be it in the terms of big economies and the warfare. And definitely, when we talk about a sector which has a huge addressable market, and as we rightly pointed out at the beginning, a multi-decadal theme, it's very important to know where we are in the cycle, right? And how we think about valuations in different pockets, so that we broadly get a view or maybe a starting point from where we look at least 2-3 years down the line if there are any interesting opportunities. Again, whenever these sessions are held, the idea is to enable the do-it-yourself investors to know about a space in particular, because it takes many working hours for all the team members to deep dive and find the right data, right? Do the all hard work. So definitely we look forward to the session on Sunday, and those who have registered, they'll be getting a link, I think latest by tomorrow. And those who are interested can certainly register. So we have kept the price, a discounted price. So that is pinned to the spaces. So those who are yet to and are interested, if they think it would be a value accretive proposition for them, they can certainly do this. Otherwise, we always keep coming with these kind of sessions
Yeah.
wherein we discuss, right?
The link will be active till 12 p.m. tonight, right? The discounted link, I mean.
All right, we have pinned this, and tomorrow onwards it would be final and be for the recording access at a later point in time. So last chance. Thank you everyone. Thanks Kaustubh, Manthan, Rahul,
Thank you.
and
Thanks.